Welcome to Living Vividly, the podcast where health, wellness, and curiosity collide. I'm Jackie, the founder of Vivid Health and Wellness, your guide on this journey to living your happiest and healthiest life.
My co-host Daphne, the unconventional dietitian, is always ready to shake things up and bring a fresh perspective to your wellness journey. And we can't forget Dustin, our producer, who keeps everything running smoothly behind the scenes. Together, we'll chat with health and wellness experts along with everyday people who have inspiring stories and practical insights to share. If you're ready to nourish your body, move better, and discover simple ways to thrive, you're in the right place. And hey, if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave us a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Fat. Let's talk about fat. So we're back.
Yeah, welcome back.
Welcome
back. Summer's not quite over. In fact, we're like in the heat of the summer, but
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
you know, school starts soon, so summer's over.
It is. I was gone for a few weeks, so I'm out of practice, so Dustin's going to be yelling at me quite a bit this episode, I'm sure.
Yes.
Touching the mic.
Don't touch it.
Okay. So what are we going to talk about today?
Let's talk about body composition.
Ugh.
Because I think there's a lot of emphasis, I guess, over the years. There's been a lot of emphasis put on body weight.
Mm-hmm.
And weight is weight, but really in the whole grand scheme of wellness, weight is such a small little factor. However, we put so much weight, pun intended, we put so much weight on the number on the scale of what your body weight is. But whenever we look at bigger picture, we can see, there's, even when we're looking at weight, body composition, which is what makes up your lean mass, muscle mass, body fat, that plays a much bigger role in being able to predict wellness or being able to predict disease processes more so than just the weight on the scale. So I have a lot of people that weigh themselves. In fact, my husband is one of them. He decided he wanted to lose weight, a couple of months ago, and weighs himself constantly, like multiple times a day, against my better judgment. I have told him, requested that he did not do that, but whatever, I can't tell him what to do. But have multiple people that weigh themselves every single day and use that as a predictor of their goodness, of their like wellness, or how they're doing, if they're good or bad, if they behaved good or bad. And it's just
like a lot of judgment.
And it's just not that is not a good predictor of how you should move through the day if you gained weight or lost weight from the previous day for a whole variety of reasons. So body composition is something that we can measure. Fun fact, whenever I was in college, at one point I changed my major, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times. But at one point I was going into kinesiology and took a class, and we had to evaluate multiple ways to measure body composition. And one of the most accurate ones was what's called underwater weighing. I can't give you all the details about it anymore, but we actually got in our swimsuit and went underwater and got weighed underwater. And it's
crazy.
A good way, it's a very accurate way to be able to judge body composition because of the way that it measures your fat, which is less dense than muscle mass. So anyway, so that body composition can be done through underwater weighing.
So wait, is your weight different underwater than it is on land? Like, is the number different?
The number's different because I can't give you all the details.
I'm going to start weighing myself underwater. Hopefully it's less.
But that's one of the ways that you can measure body composition. More recently, there are many other ways on land that you can measure body composition. So the most common is a DEXA scan, or the most accurate, I should say, is a DEXA scan. So you've had experience with a DEXA scan. So tell us what the DEXA scan.
So about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, my doctor, Dr. Shute, who's been on the podcast, he has a DEXA scanner in his office, and my weight was good, but it also measures your muscle mass and all these things. And I was on the lower end of muscle. I need to pull out my results. It was either muscle mass or lean muscle mass. Basically, I was like in the 9th percentile for women my age and how much muscle I should have. So now my husband calls me 9% because I'm not strong. Like anytime I'm trying to buck up to him, he's like, all right, calm down, 9%.
Wow.
So when we're talking about lean mass includes your muscle, but also includes your organs and your bone and water. So lean mass is kind of a big, literally just everything except body fat. So you have lean mass, which is broken down. And so another thing that some of the body scanners will measure is in that lean mass, what part of that is skeletal muscle. So skeletal muscle meaning not organs, not blood vessels, but just your actual, what we think of as muscle that's actually holding up your skeleton. And then we have, body fat. And so the skeletal muscle mass or lean mass, we need to be comparing the same things, and body fat are the things to really pay attention to over time.
I was mistaken. It's not a DEXA. It's a SECA.
Okay.
I don't know what the difference is, but it's a medical body composition analyzer. And I was not excited about how little muscle I had because I know how important that is for your body to function and fight off sickness.
Longevity.
Yeah.
So the good thing though if we have to look at the silver lining about this situation, is that you have the ability to take that information and
make changes,
change the way that you are moving through life. And so one of the things that I have an in-body scanner in my office. And one of the things that I like about it is obviously it's not just weight, and your worth is not measured in your body weight. So it's not just weight, but we can track people over time. So whenever I'm working with somebody, usually I'll weigh them initially on the in-body, and then after 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then once every quarter or so we'll weigh on the in-body, because things don't change drastically, not in the same way that your weight changes. So if you weigh yourself on Friday morning and you weigh yourself on Monday morning, there's usually a few pounds of change, even if your weekend was great and you did all the things you normally do. For some reason, there's something about the weekend that your weight always goes up on Monday. I never tell people to weigh themselves on Monday. That seems like
it's already a sad enough day. Don't do it to yourself.
It's great. So that changes pretty quickly. But when you're looking at actual muscle mass, that doesn't change drastically. It takes a long time to change that.
So if you're going to start working out, like say I did my scan, I start working out, lifting weights, some cardio, and my weight goes up. Is that potentially because I've gained muscle? Even if you're losing fat?
Potentially, it could be that you gain muscle. Muscle also holds onto fluid, so you could have more fluid weight, which again on a scale is not going to show. It's just going to show weight. But yeah, it could be that you gain muscle. If you are taking creatine, which is kind of one of the new supplements that I feel like in my social media circles, everybody's talking about creatine. Creatine also encourages your muscle to hold on to fluid, which is a good thing. So your weight can go up, but your body fat doesn't necessarily go up. Your body fat may go up, it may go down, but we don't know that unless we are actually measuring body composition.
Right. So without doing a scan like this, just using a normal scale,
we have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
No.
So you might be sad for no reason.
Right.
I'm talking to myself.
So I have done on my in-body scale, I've had it, 4 or 5 years, multiple weigh-ins. And sometimes the number has, if I'm being honest, through menopause progressively gone up. The weight on the scale has gone up. But whenever I look at my body fat percentage, it's always kind of been in the normal, but that does change. So most recently I did it and my body fat percentage went down almost 4 percentage points.
Wow.
Which means that the previous time that I weighed, I was fattier, much fattier. My weight was about the same. Skeletal muscle mass went up 3 pounds. So body fat percentage went down, skeletal muscle mass went up 3 pounds. But my weight only changed by 1/2 pound. So, there's not, you can't look at yourself and know what your body composition is.
But you might be able to feel different. Maybe
you can usually feel different. And a lot of people will say, I don't necessarily, the number on the scale hasn't changed, but my clothes fit differently. Maybe not quite as snug in some places. Maybe, I can button it without, discomfort, button jeans without discomfort. Although, do people really wear jeans anymore? I think I'm the only one.
I really try to avoid it.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one that wears jeans.
Every once in a while I do. Not when it's hot though. I'm like flowy.
Let's talk about what's considered normal body fat.
Okay.
Because I think I don't know, I don't think it's ever really discussed, honestly. I don't think it's talked about, but people want to have like the least body fat as possible. And really we need body fat for, it is essential for a variety of reasons. But so what's considered normal for men? Normal body fat percentage for men is anywhere from 14 to 24%. If someone's an athlete or if they're, high training really, really hard, it might be a little bit lower, but you still need for men at least 5% body fat is still is needed. For women, it's a little bit different. Women, we're a little bit fattier. We carry a little bit more fat on our body and it's considered normal. So anywhere from 21% to 31% is considered normal body fat for women.
Let's see what mine was.
Again, if you're an athlete, it may be lower than that, or if you're training really hard for something, it might be lower. But 21 to 31 is considered the normal range of body fat. So that means, up to nearly a third of your weight is fat, could be fat, and that is normal. That is normal. So the idea of trying to get as lean as possible. So we need some body fat, especially if you are in childbearing ages and you potentially want to get pregnant, you need some body fat to allow that to happen.
Yeah. I think there's such an obsession with getting rid of, I think it all trickles down from the 90s when we were growing up, just not eating fat. And even my 8-year-old this morning, we were just asking Siri what the nutritional value of all of our foods are. We're house full of health freaks, and Siri said something like an egg has however much fat, and Mary was like, fat? I was like, yeah, it's good for you, you have to eat fat. But I don't even know how she's programmed already.
She's 8.
And I certainly don't talk about so it just happens, so we're trying to unlearn these things where fat's actually good. Not too much fat, and maybe not visceral fat, but having some fat. But okay, so say someone does one of these scans, they're not happy with what's going on, they have a lot of fat versus muscle. Like, what can they do? Like, what are their first steps to shift the numbers? Like, what would you suggest?
The first thing I would do is start being active. So kind of evaluate your activity level. And if you're not doing something that is resisting muscle, some kind of resistance muscle training, then I think that's the first place to start. So that could be anything from, I think the easiest would be wearing a weighted vest. That's the new trend now, weighted vest. Or I know Dr. Stacy Sims says that it's okay to put weight in a backpack. Not a lot of weight, but up to 10% of your body weight in a backpack in lieu of a weighted vest. So that's a side thing. So if you're somebody that's a walker, that would be a way to add some resistance to your bones and to your muscles. You can do resistance bands. So whether it's, the long rubber band type resistance bands, or if you did the round ones that you can do different things with, you can do something like that. But being able to resist the muscle is important to hold on to that muscle. So the least bottom line, baseline of what we want to do is preserve the muscle mass that you have. But if we're trying to build muscle mass, you have to resist the muscle and you have to make sure you're eating enough protein. But so that's where I would start, is evaluating your activity level. We do need some cardio activity, but really kind of focusing more on resistance training. Certainly dumbbells would be another way that's, kind of easy that you can have in your house. You can do weight training, obviously in a gym. There's a whole variety of different ways that you can do weight training. Pilates is another way to do some resistance. So, there's not one way to do it, but you have to be moving and you have to be putting some kind of strain on your muscles. Another thing that I think is an important factor here is that sometimes people lift weights just for the sake of lifting weights, 3 pounds, 5 pounds, like, oh yeah, I did my little weight training. But if you're not really putting enough stress on the muscle, so essentially what makes a muscle grow or what builds a muscle is whenever you put enough stress on it that the muscle actually tears. And when the muscle tears, that sounds terrible, but when the muscle tears, it terrible. It regrows a little bit stronger.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
And so you need to be putting enough resistance on that muscle for it to tear and be able to regrow a little bit stronger. The weights that you're lifting, if you're lifting weights, should be either heavy enough weight so that you can, get to the maximum amount of reps that you can do. And granted, I'm not an exercise scientist at all. We certainly could have someone else on here that would talk about this, but this is just kind of basic information. Heavy enough so that you can't, you get to the maximum amount of reps, or doing enough reps with a lighter weight to get to the point where you fatigue the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of just baseline. So I'd start with that. Obviously, what you eat plays a really big role. So that can go 1,000 different directions, but a lot of times it's either eating too many calories, like snacks is where I always get in trouble.
Yeah.
A handful of mixed nuts, maybe just an extra something that I have during the day. That's kind of where I usually exceed my calories, because I have no problem eating enough calories.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some people who have dieted or restricted for so long that they are not eating enough calories, and then the body goes into that preservation storage mode, and so then they have to kind of excite their intake, excite their metabolism a little bit more. So that's kind of a gradual, like a refeeding process that could happen. But calories do make a difference, the amount of calories. And I'd say if you've never, I think, to understand, you can talk to somebody like me as a dietitian until like you both have enough conversation where everybody feels like they understand what's happening. But if you've never tracked your calories in an app of some sort, I do think that's a really useful tool to do occasionally, like a couple of days here, a couple of days there, just so you can get a better understanding of, are you eating 800 calories or are you eating 2,800 calories?
If you're not really being mindful about what you're putting in your mouth, it could easily go off the rails.
Absolutely. And that brings up a good point, because things like, and I don't want to like shame anyone, but things like hummus, avocado, they're healthy things. Handful of, mixed nuts. I keep saying that because that's my downfall. Mm-hmm. But they're also very calorie dense. Mm-hmm. So although they're healthy and they have, a nutritional value, in comparison to like a bag of chips or, granola bar, those are less healthy, but it still can add up pretty quickly. And all of that really does matter. So I don't really expect that everyone's going to be tracking their calories all the time, but if you've never done it, then I do think it's a good practice to do it a little while so that you can get a better understanding of what your eating patterns look like. What I often see is that the morning is very, very scant. There's not much in the morning besides coffee, maybe a quick protein bar. And then as the day goes on, because you're hungry, you end up eating somewhere between, 3 and 6 o'clock, snacking on a lot of things because you're hungry, going ham. And then the evening becomes like an onslaught of just debauchery. And that pattern we can see whenever we're tracking our meals.
Yeah, I think I used to do that too. And now that I've started eating like really hearty breakfasts, it kind of like slows me down. I'm really not hungry until 2.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Big difference.
Especially like, and having enough protein, you have to really be purposeful to get enough protein. You can't accidentally get enough protein.
Right.
I mean, sometimes I'm like eating, I have a couple eggs, some breakfast, like some chicken sausage and some Greek yogurt. And by the end of breakfast, I'm like, I can't eat another bite. It's just so much.
Yeah. So let's talk about protein, because we said that we have to have resistance on a muscle, and we also have to have protein. And so there are a couple of things that I know get confusing with protein, just because of, there's so much information. So we'll kind of clear a few things up. So protein, as you probably know, is one of our 3 macronutrients where we get calories from. So carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Protein comes from primarily animals. So we'll talk about plant-based protein, and we can get protein from plants, but primarily our most dense sources of protein are going to come from animals. So whether it's, we know beef does have protein in it. It also has fat. So almost all of the places that we get protein, there is a fat component to it. So you have to be cautious about choosing leaner proteins, and we can talk through that. But, beef, pork, chicken, turkey, and then seafood, your fish, shellfish, and then dairy products. So whether it's milk does have protein in it, and anything made from milk. So yogurt, cottage cheese, really those 2. There is a little bit of protein in cheese, but it's higher fat. I guess a little bit of protein in ice cream, but it's not really a protein source,
Right.
you know. But so you've got your animal-based things, and then eggs would be the other higher protein thing. Where there gets to be confusion sometimes is how much protein you should have in a day. And so, as you mentioned, if we're trying to get your protein needs, if you're trying to meet your protein needs throughout the day, then we have to have protein with every meal. You have to have protein with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you can fit some in a snack too, that's great. If you need a snack, but you can't meet your protein goals for the day if you're not having protein with breakfast. And breakfast tends to be the hardest time to get protein because our traditional breakfast foods don't really have protein in them. So something like a bowl of cereal, even if it's a healthy bowl of cereal, doesn't have protein. Things like biscuits, bagels, croissants,
Right.
English muffins, all those things just don't have protein.
That's also
in them.
setting yourself up for like a sugar roller coaster
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
I recently saw out of the popular proteins, chicken's the best, peanut butter's the worst.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. So peanut butter is a little bit of a misconception. While peanut butter does have protein in it, and I would say this about peanut butter, even almond butter, and nuts in general, or seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, they do have protein in them, but they have significantly more fat than they do protein. So peanut butter has protein, but it has almost twice as much fat in it. So in order to get a good serving of protein, you're getting a lot of calories that are coming from fat.
I think that was the main point. The worst
Yeah.
calorie count was peanut butter and the best was chicken.
Yeah, so chicken, you can get chicken or turkey. They're not the same, obviously, but I kind of think of them as being the same as far as leanness goes. So you can
Birds.
get
Both birds with feathers.
birds of feathers flock together, huh?
A chicken turkey club sandwich.
Yeah, there you go. So you can get pretty lean portions of chicken and turkey.
So a turducken
Turducken.
would be just ultimate protein.
That would be a lot of protein. Yes. I mean, that usually comes alongside a whole onslaught of things that do not go well into fitting into a healthy diet. But yes, a turducken would give you like ultimate protein. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, it actually would.
The trifecta.
The trifecta of the birds of the feathers that flock together. So lean wise, that's where you're going to get the leanness is going to be chicken, turkey, I guess duck too. But duck, I think traditionally is a little bit fattier
think
than
so, too.
chicken and turkey.
Duck fries.
You can get
Ooh.
some pretty lean pork. So like a lean pork tenderloin,
Really?
you can do. Those are pretty lean. Pork in the form of like bacon or sausage obviously is much fattier, more
Does
processed.
that even count as a protein?
I
Like,
don't
if you're
count
gonna
it as a
have
protein. Again, it has more fat than anything.
Really?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so a
so when I think I'm getting protein from my bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich,
egg.
Egg,
just the egg, not really the bacon.
not really the bacon. And I mean, a little bit of the bacon, mostly the egg. And in the egg, it's the egg white that has protein.
Okay.
And then a little bit in the cheese. But cheese kind of goes in that same category as nuts, that it's much higher fat than it is protein.
Gotcha.
So there is some protein there. It's not a protein source, though.
Yeah.
And so whenever you're saying, okay, like the beef has protein, but it also has fat, that doesn't mean that it's bad, right? Because you do want some dietary fat.
Right. So we need some dietary fat. Typically, the type of fat that you're going to find in beef is going to be more saturated fat. So this is kind of where it goes into the nuances of how the cattle was raised. So if it is a pasture raised animal, then it will have fat in it, likely higher fat content than conventionally raised, but the quality of that fat is a better
Because
quality.
they're eating grass versus
Right.
grain.
So less saturated, more omega-3s by a little bit. I mean, beef, even grass-fed beef, is not a big omega-3 source. But if we're looking at the difference between the two, then it's going to have a little bit of a better fat profile versus a conventionally fed cattle that's going to be eating more grains, like you said. So the fat content may be about the same or a little bit less, but the quality of that fat is different.
When you say less saturated, is that a scale or is that just there is saturated fat and there is unsaturated fat?
Both of them will have saturated fat in them. The one that is grain fed, like conventionally raised beef, will have a little bit less amount of saturated fat.
Like I'm trying to figure out, like, is saturated a scale or is it a thing?
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
So it's not like
So
if 5 grams of saturated fat, there's not another 5 grams of saturated fat that's not as saturated as this saturated.
this might be completely wrong, but whenever I took
it's just
my
saturated
nutrition
fat.
class, I associated saturated fat with like solidified fat. Like it's more solidified, and like unsaturated fat was more like oil.
That is correct. So
Interesting.
at temperatures does make a difference.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at like a fat tree, we have fat, we have saturated fat, and we have unsaturated fat. Saturated fat is more solid. So
It's like
again,
animal
kind of
fat.
we go to, if you imagine cooking bacon
Oh, that makes
in a
sense.
pan, in a pot, and whenever you take that bacon out and that pan cools, you can see
hardens.
it's solid. It's more solidified. So that's typically more of a saturated fat. Then if we go unsaturated fat, we have polyunsaturated fat, we have monounsaturated fat, we have trans fats, which start as an unsaturated fat but get transitioned into a saturated fat. So trans
Ugh.
fats always start as polyunsaturated and they get transitioned into.
And those are bad fats.
Those are the bad fats that everyone in the medical system agrees that trans fats should be eliminated.
Right.
And
that was a big thing.
for the most part, they have been mostly
And
eliminated.
I feel like
by the food
polyunsaturated
industry.
fats are now like they're on the out.
Well, polyunsaturated fats,
What was-
again,
hold
it
on.
gets kind of nuanced.
What did you just say?
PUFAs.
PUFAs, yeah, polyunsaturated fat.
Oh, is that the
PUFA.
trendy way to say it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So polyunsaturated fat includes both omega-3s and omega-6 fats and omega-9s. I mean, there are other kinds, but saturated fat is going to be solid at room temperature. So if you think of Crisco, like if your grandmother had Crisco, you'd open it and it wasn't solid, but it was, not liquid. Like you
Right.
could poke it.
Like butter.
Which, yes. Fun side story. One time, whenever I was a young child, I don't know why, but we had a pot of saturated fat on the stove, and I went up to it and I stirred it because it was so like gross and funky. I stirred it, and then my dad came along and thought it was mashed potatoes and took a big bite of it. I will never forget that.
Best accidental prank ever.
One of the funniest moments of my childhood. And that's probably terrible.
That actually reminds me of another story. When I was a child, I've always been a sugar addict, and my mom had a bag of what I thought was powdered sugar in the cabinet, and I went to like take a spoonful of the powdered sugar, and it was cornstarch.
Oh!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So never went for another spoon of sugar again.
I just used to eat country crock out of the bowl, out of the bucket.
That's
Okay.
trans fat, right?
Country crock. I think it's transitioned
Soybean oil.
over time. It's transitioned into a variety of things.
They knew I was in it whenever they saw finger swipes.
Oh yeah. So when we had foster children, I wouldn't do it with country crock. I would do it with real butter, but I would mix butter and honey and cinnamon, mix it all up, melt the butter so it could stir really well, and then put it in a bag and make little like droplets with it and put it in the freezer and feed that to them, and they were just like
Like candy.
they just ate it up. It was so good. So when we talk about unsaturated fats, and what makes a fat saturated or unsaturated has to do with the chemical bonds that hold the fat together. So that's less important. But when we go back to unsaturated fats, we have omega-3, omega-6, omega-9 unsaturated fats. Omega-3s we really need, and those really are only coming from a small handful of foods. So outside of supplementing with omega-3, we can get oily fish, so most commonly salmon, tuna. Less common would be things like mackerel, herring, sardines, anchovies, and that's really the bulk of our highly omega-3 unsaturated foods.
Unsaturated ones are the more liquid fats, is what we said earlier, right?
Unsaturated
are
or more liquid. So it could be unsaturated monounsaturated, or it could be unsaturated polyunsaturated.
Right.
And again, it just has to do with the chemical bonds that hold the carbon chain together.
Is one better than the other?
Monounsaturated is across the board better.
Okay.
And so monounsaturated would be things like olives and avocado, macadamia nuts. Believe it or not, lard is monounsaturated.
Lard coming from
Hog lard.
hog lard. Really?
Most fats are a variety of fats together. So unsaturated can have the monounsaturated and the polyunsaturated together. And so hog lard is one of those. It has it all together, but it has more monounsaturated than anything.
So whenever I said, "Oh, really?" I caught myself because I feel like that was one of those things that we were programmed in my early life. Like back in the olden days, they cooked with lard and tallow and that was it. And everyone was much healthier. And now
Right.
we have the Crisco and all the oils.
Yeah. Obviously with something like that, because toxins are stored in fat, so you would want obviously a pig or a cow that you're getting tallow from to be well
Healthy,
fed, to be
yeah.
clean, to be, not toxic. And you can usually see it kind of by the color of the fat. It's either white, or once it starts to get like a brownish color, then that would indicate it probably has more toxins in it. Okay, so getting back to protein, how do you know how much protein to have? There are all different kinds of ways to calculate it. Taking your body weight in pounds and multiplying it by a factor. So depending on, again, the lowest amount I think that we should do is take your body weight and multiply it times 0.55. And I think that's the low scale of how much we need. If we're trying to decrease insulin resistance, which means that we need to increase our protein intake, that's one of the ways to decrease protein intake. If then we can go up on that scale, so we can go anywhere from 0.55 to 0.95, multiplying your weight times 0.55 to 0.95, and that's a pretty big range. But depending on if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to change your insulin resistance, if you have any blood sugar handling disorders or dysfunctions, such as polycystic ovarian syndrome or diabetes, then we probably need to go higher on that number for your protein needs.
I always thought it was just one. So like your weight times 1 equals however many grams of protein, which I guess is close to 0.95.
Yeah. So there are lots of different people that are saying lots of different things. I've heard as high as your weight times 2,
That's
your
a
weight times
lot.
1.5, but that's a lot of protein.
Especially
And
if you're a dude.
I think your body, right, if you're a heavier person. And so I should also say it should be your goal weight. So, if you are a heavier person, so you're 300 pounds, and we're not trying to get to 300 pounds of protein,
That'd
but
be too many calories probably.
right. So you would do your goal weight and multiply that times your factor. So that's how much you should have in a day. And then we would take that number and divide it by 3 as evenly as possible, and then break that to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So usually lunch and dinner are a little bit heavier protein, but it shouldn't be too much different.
So we should be, let's just say if we want 100 grams of protein in a day, or 110, whatever,
Yeah.
it's like 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do without being mindful.
Right. So breakfast is the hardest. So another thing to keep in mind here is that 1 ounce of meat, so if we're talking about chicken, turkey, beef, pork, 1 ounce of meat is equal to 7 grams of protein.
Okay.
So if we're trying to get to 30 to 40 grams per meal, then we'd need about 5 ounces of meat for that meal, for lunch and for dinner. And that will get you to, if you do 5 ounces, and this is all the numbers aspect, if you do 5 ounces for lunch, 5 ounces for dinner, that's 70 grams of protein. So then, if your protein needs to increase, then we could do 6 ounces for lunch and dinner. But we also need to factor in, obviously, breakfast. So usually breakfast, as a minimum amount of protein you should get for breakfast is 20 grams. 20 to 30 is
And
kind
then
of
go
the
higher
range.
with dinner
And then,
and-
and then if you need a snack in there, you can have a little snack.
And it's important to spread out the protein. You can't have it all in one.
Like 100 grams of protein in one meal.
Like just like a 32-ounce steak.
for
I mean,
breakfast.
it's
For breakfast.
possible.
You could do it.
It's not advisable.
But I'm asking if it's actually better to spread out your protein, or is it just easier?
Both. It is
Okay.
better. Your body can digest it more
There we go.
efficiently and
Okay.
Yeah, I
utilize
feel
it
like
if
you would
it's
just
more
like-
spread out.
I mean, hate to say this, but like just poop it all out.
Yeah, you can only break down so much at a time, and there is a little bit of controversy.
Don't hate
I've
talking
heard
about poop.
I know. Who am I kidding?
I've heard the myth that you can only break down about 30 grams of protein at a time, and I've heard that debunked. So I don't know what that upper limit of normal is, but if you were to try and eat 100 grams of protein at one time, I think you would not feel very comfortable. But also I know that you would not be able to efficiently break all of that down. So you wouldn't have the gastric secretions and the digestive enzymes to fully break that down and be able to utilize all of those amino acids.
I've seen a lot of people just have like burgers for breakfast. Like I watch a lot of the meathead healthy people on Instagram, and they'll just have like ground beef and avocado and like maybe some eggs.
I actually had a hamburger for breakfast this morning.
You?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not the norm. It's definitely not the norm, but my husband grilled a bunch of stuff over the weekend, and
I love savory food for breakfast.
yeah, I had a hamburger and some sweet potatoes. I feel like maybe there's something else, but I don't remember. Traditionally, like I said, our breakfast meals are more carb heavy. So things like waffles and pancakes and French toast and, all of the sugary type of things that, toaster strudels and Pop-Tarts and all of those things that, I would never recommend, obviously, anyone have those, but that's, that tends to be kind of the way that breakfast has leaned. So because we've, I think, been programmed for things to be usually sweet, so we start with some kind of coffee that usually has some kind of sweetener added to it, because coffee by itself is too bitter for most people.
I love straight bean water. Just like give it to me black.
Can we talk about, I thought this was really cool. They say you can drink water, black coffee, and still be fasting. But you said as soon as you put creamer in your coffee, you might as well eat breakfast.
Right.
That's crazy to me. What does that affect?
Because it's calories.
Because it's something that your body has to break down.
And then your body just goes into that mode.
It's not fasting anymore.
Yeah, it's not fasting anymore.
Interesting. I think that's crazy.
So oftentimes, and again, because I spend my life interviewing people about eating habits, many times, most of what I see is women, so it's all women that say this, but they'll say that they're doing a fasting routine. And so when I start asking, they wake up in the morning, they have their coffee with cream, and perhaps maybe that cream is flavored. Maybe it is not flavored, but they're adding sugar to it. Just a couple of teaspoons. Then, but they don't eat breakfast because they want to stay fasting. But the moment that you put something in your coffee that has to be broken down, whether it's cream or sugar, then you're no longer fasting. So they've broken their fasting routine with their coffee, and I could go on a whole rant about the coffee in the morning that doesn't have anything paired with it and what that does to blood sugar and anxiety and all that stuff. So I'll save you all that. But once you have something, even if it's something that you're drinking, then you've broken your fast.
But black coffee's good.
Black coffee does not have anything that requires digestion.
I've always wondered about that whenever I'm about to do blood work too.
Yeah.
I always feel kind of naughty having coffee before, but I'm like, I'm doing it anyway. I worked out semi-regularly this summer, but I definitely ate a lot of ice cream and I'm not proud of it. I got back on the scale when I got home and I was depressed, to say the least. And I'm glad that you said like your weight does not define who you are or like your goodness, because I got on it and I was like, I am a fraud. Like, what is wrong with me? And I spiraled all last week over it. And so I'm back in my normal routine at my house, working out. But it blew my mind because I still was working out, I was still active, but it didn't matter.
So we can't exercise a bad diet. Not that your diet is bad. I know it's not bad, but that
every night ice cream, well, even after all day healthy, it's still that
goes to show that, everything kind of adds up.
Yeah.
Not to say that you can't treat yourself and you can't have things that you wouldn't normally have every day, but your day-to-day actions and your day-to-day routine, the things that you do all of the time, whether it's eating ice cream, so there's going to be a outcome from that, or if it's saying no to ice cream and saying, you know what, instead of ice cream, I'm going to go for a walk around the block. And that neither one of them are essentially good or bad, but it's the repetition of doing it over and over and over, which is, I think, what makes the biggest change.
Yeah. And those 6 weeks flew by. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. So definitely was an eye-opening situation. So I'm going to take a couple, maybe 2 or 3 more months before I go get my new scan and see what it looks like.
Yeah. So in that time, though, making sure that you are lifting your weights, that you're prioritizing protein, and drinking lots of water, too.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely talked about water before.
Or black coffee.
No. No. Not that you can't have black coffee, but black coffee does not replace water.
I actually didn't have coffee this morning.
Oh, so unusual for
I didn't
you.
make it yesterday, and it takes like 18 hours to brew. So that might be why I'm so tired.
Yeah.
It's my caffeine addiction.
So we have animal protein, which is your most dense source of protein. Then we have plant protein. So there are some plant foods that that do have protein in them. For plants, I usually think of plants as being more fiber focused, but they do have some protein. So our plant-based foods that have some protein would be nuts and seeds. So we talked a little bit about peanut butter, but any type of nut, whether it's, a handful of almonds, walnuts, pecans, or seeds like sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. I think they're your more common ones, maybe hemp seeds. They have protein in them, but they don't have as much protein as they do fat. And so the fat content increases the calories. And so while you can add the protein from nuts and seeds to your protein content for the day, we don't want to really use nuts as a way to increase your protein. So another plant source that has protein is beans or legumes. So everything from lentils to garbanzo beans or chickpeas to black beans, they do have protein in them.
Would a pea count as a bean?
A pea, yeah. So a black-eyed pea or a little round green pea, those all fall into the same category. And I think of those as being like in thirds. So a third of the calories, and they're not high calorie necessarily, but a third of the calories comes from protein. A third of the calories comes from fiber. And fiber is a type of carbohydrate that we can't break down. And then a third of the calories come from actual carbohydrates that your body can break down into glucose. So it has more carbohydrates than protein, but a lot of that carbohydrate is fiber. So I do think, and this is contrary to a lot of nutritional people.
Unconventional, if you will.
Unconventionally.
There you go.
I think that beans and legumes are really, really, really beneficial in the diet. They're very filling. They're a great source of fiber. But again, they're not a big protein source. We can add that to our protein, but protein content for the day. But if you're trying to get all of your protein or a good chunk of your protein, say you're trying to get 35 grams of protein from beans, it's a lot of beans and it's a lot of fiber, and you're probably going to have some side effects from that, a little bloating and discomfort.
I was vegetarian for like 5 years and I was bloated.
That's still crazy to me that you were a vegetarian.
Yeah, until I got pregnant, actually.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, before I even knew I was pregnant, I was like, I need to kill a cow. It was like, I need a burger. It's a very strange
That's
feeling.
funny.
Why is pea protein such a big thing? Like, why peas?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure, but I would say probably because it is more dense. It's just an easier way to get protein.
They found an easy way, yeah.
With less byproduct or byproduct.
Waste.
But you can also get plant-based protein from things like other grains, so millet and amaranth and flour, nuts. Like I'm thinking like almond flour, almonds. You can get rice protein.
What?
Yeah, so it's just the protein component of rice. So that leads us to our third category of plants that have protein in them, and that would be grains.
Okay.
So grains consist of the big category of things like rice, oats, quinoa, and other grains that we don't really eat a whole lot of, like millet, amaranth, buckwheat, barley. Those are all grains that have protein in them, but it's such a small amount. Even quinoa, which is advertised or
Like complete
touted as
protein or something.
complete protein and high protein grain, it still only has I'm gonna try and about 4 grams of protein per half cup serving. I want to say maybe it's 6, but the carbohydrates in that half cup serving is closer to like 15. So if you're looking at a cup, we'll say, then you've got 8 grams of protein, but you've got 39 grams of carbohydrates that are going to be turned into glucose. And
almost 5 times as much.
so it's
Crazy.
grains are a protein source. And I think I don't think that you can really do a good job of meeting your protein needs on a vegetarian diet. let me say that differently. I do think that it's possible to do it. I don't think most people are going to be willing to put forth the planning and energy that is needed to meet your protein needs through a vegetarian diet.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, Sean and I both were vegetarians for years, and we were both overweight, like not our healthiest at all whenever we were vegetarians. And it was an unfortunate reality that we had to kind of face.
Yeah.
The protein in quinoa is complete, meaning it contains all 9 essential amino acids, which I'm assuming not all grains do.
Correct. Okay, so this is another kind of myth that's out there about protein and has been out there for a long time. So there are 20 amino acids and 9 of them essential, meaning that your body can't produce them. It can't create it. And so it used to be said, or we used to talk about how you should have something like beans and rice. So beans and rice together make a complete protein. And so you have to eat them together. And in reality, as long as you are eating all of the amino acids, they don't have to be eaten at the same time for you to really be able to utilize them. So the idea of complete protein and incomplete protein is kind of a long busted myth that we do not need to eat those together. Right. So we just need all of the amino acids on a regular basis, but we don't need to have them in the same meal or even in the same day, honestly.
Just big quinoa at it again.
Yeah. Those quinoa marketers, the advertisers for quinoa have, we just busted their myth.
Yeah. BMI. Okay, so yeah, the BMI I feel like is the thing that people really beat themselves up, especially as shorties.
Holla.
My BMI is always like at the threshold of normal and overweight, but I'm 4'11".
So BMI is really just taking into account height and weight. So it's not taking into account any of the lean muscle mass that we talked about or, anything like that. It's just height and weight. And so it's a calculation. So you plug in your weight in pounds, height in inches, and multiply that times 703. That's how you come up with your BMI number. And so there are, everybody's seen them, BMI charts all over the place where you can look at your weight and your height and kind of come up with your number. So anything 18.5 or less on the BMI chart is considered underweight. 18.5 to 24.9 is considered normal. So that is an enormous, huge range. And then 25 to 29.9 is considered overweight, and 30 and greater is considered obese. But keeping in mind, again, that it doesn't take into account lean muscle mass. It doesn't take anything else into account. So while I guess it can be useful I understand why it was started, just kind of blanketly to put people in a category. It's really very nuanced. And so you really kind of have to dig into more body composition because BMI just doesn't tell us enough information.
Yeah, I don't like BMI at all. I think it's just hurtful.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, what if you're 5 foot and you have a bunch of muscle and a big booty and you're at like 26? Which I have a little bit of muscle now and a big booty, and I'm at 26. It's like I'm overweight.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
So it's something that, I don't really talk about. Unfortunately, for insurance purposes, whenever I'm billing insurance, it's all based on BMI. So, but I don't ever talk about it with people, oh, well, your BMI is this. I just don't find that to be useful at all.
Yeah.
So
these more like the in-body and the DEXA, those are so much more specific.
Well, and then we also look at, what do your labs look like? Because you can certainly be, just like when we were talking to Amy Bernhardt, you can be
skinny fat,
appropriate BMI, but still have very high cholesterol, high blood pressure. So we look at that as a little sliver of just wellness in general. So what are your labs? Are you taking any kind of supplements or vitamins? Do you need them? So it's just it's part of a much bigger picture. We just put entirely too much weight on weight.
Let's catch up. What have you got going on?
So I am putting together the final touches on the Real Food Challenge Part 2 for 2025. I did the Real Food Challenge earlier in January, but I feel like this time of year, coming back from summer where things usually go a little astray, we're going to be doing the Real Food Challenge starting September 17th. So just a quick summary, it's 6 weeks of just getting back to real food. And so it is a guided, there are lots of videos and information on bringing things back to real food, meal plans, grocery list, obviously lots of recipes, and just kind of breaking food down and nutrition down to the very, very basics. So whether you're just kind of getting started and you're like, oh, this whole nutrition thing, I've heard about it, but never really understood the details. Or if you've, been along this path for a little while and things went sideways and you need just something to kind of pull you back in, it's going to be a group experience, and we'll have live weekly calls to talk about each challenge for that week.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's a good way to just refocus and get back into understanding and eating real food, just getting back to the basics.
Thanks for listening to Living Vividly. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. For more resources and details from today's discussion, check out the show notes. Until next time, keep living vividly.